All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I've got an amazing warrior guest here, LaShanya Aikerson, and I'll be introducing her in a second. But first, let me remind you of why you're here. So, success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses. They're all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future, and today's guest is no exception. LaShanya Aikerson is an awesome warrior. She's a certified speaker, trainer, coach, and consultant. Her warrior journey began over 30 years ago in Chicago as an electrical engineer for a major telecommunications company. Because she was good technically, she got promoted to become a supervisor. And unfortunately, her engineering education and her technical prowess did not empower her with the tools to be an effective leader or effective with people. As a result, not long after her promotion, she found herself fired. This experience inspired her to learn what separates the best from the rest when it comes to being effective with teams and organizations. Today, as the CEO of Aikerson Consulting Group, she works with corporate and government organizations to turn managers into leaders, a good aspiration. LaShanya Aikerson, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are things in beautiful Florida?
Hello. Things in Florida are awesome. Warm as usual.
Yeah, us in Texas, we call Florida the other free state. And if you all you have to do is watch a little bit of news and have lived over the last couple of years to know what that means. But yeah, it's been quite a journey through this, as I call it, the zombie apocalypse. So things go. You're in kind of the Miami area. Are you in Miami proper, or are you?
I am right downtown,
Oh,
so
wow.
in Miami.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're right there in the middle of all the fun and activity. Yeah, Florida is a beautiful thing. I think my daughter and son-in-law and grandkids are headed. They're not headed to Miami. I think they're headed to see Mickey. But anyway, so I think they're doing that this weekend. So I hope the weather. I think when we were talking before, I loved it because, and I've been to Florida many times, and it's hot and hotter. I mean, that's
Yes,
yeah, right.
that's
That's
it.
that's the what is it? Is it hot today or is it hotter today? So,
Exactly. Those are the two temperatures.
oh, anything else unusual or exciting before we take a quick break and we get back into your story? Anything that going on in your world?
Just living my best life, enjoying each day.
Yeah, well, I love your energy and your smile and all that. For those that are just listening to us on the audio, you ought to go and listen to the video or watch the video, because LaShanya's got a captivating smile, and so you would definitely be blessed by that. Well, let's do this. I want to hear a little more for the audio audience of our theme song, "It's Not the Getting There" with Ricky Jean Wright. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to hear LaShanya's story in Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back, and LaShanya, excited to get to talk to you today. LaShanya did a mastermind with us last Friday, and I love talking to the warriors in this Warrior versus Zombie after they've invested in my community. That means a lot to me, and it's worth me making sure that their value, their story, gets out there, because we all have a story, and we shouldn't take it to the grave. So So LaShanya, tell me, how did you get from where you started, wherever you want to pick as a starting point, to where you are today?
So, excellent question. And for me, I feel like when we're children, we all have an experience that has happened to us, usually by the time we're 7, sometime between birth and 7, that kind of frames our life. And for me, that experience was my younger sister being born. So before she came along, here I was, the only child. Quite frankly, I was good with that. No one took a vote for me if I wanted a sibling. And so next thing she's being born. And I remember my dad distinctly saying, and to this day, when he talks about my birth, he's like, oh yeah, you were born premature and you had to stay in the hospital and, you looked like an alien and like all these things. And with my sister, he said, she's perfect. She's beautiful. We get to take her home today. And something stuck in me. And I suddenly decided, even though I had never laid eyes on this child, okay, she's got the good looking thing. So I have to be smart. And not, it's a nice to have, but that is my only offering in terms of value. And so true to form, throughout my life, I went through this straight A, you got to get good grades and everything because, being smart, that's all you got because she's got the be perfect, look good thing. And so that transcended into, I got to a point where, for me, I've always wondered, when you think about what is a life well lived and what value, what difference can you make? How are you going to leave the world better than you found it? And when I think about that, for me, I always thought, well, step one is to get my house in order so that I can be a contribution and not a detriment. And that meant, going into, technical fields. I went to a high school called the Illinois Math and Science Academy. I, got a degree in electrical engineering, all of that sort of thing. And for me, I also picked fields that I thought, aligned to me. Numbers seem to make perfect sense. 1 + 1 = 2. Got it. Logical. You can understand it. Some of these other subjects, not so much. You go and, one day the answer is this, and the next day they're like, but this other time in history, this happened. And it's like, wait, so what's the answer? Oh, there's no real answer. And so I did. And I had the good fortune of having parents that fed into me. And so every time I said I had an interest, they supported me pursuing, if I liked it or not, versus, hey, you said last week you like ballet and now you like tap, like, you got to pick, they just said, okay, try the new one. And so I got a chance to do a lot of things. And so for me, one distinctive experience was I was at the time president of this group for kids called Tomorrow Scientists, Technicians, and Managers. And it was basically all of the geeky kids in town that really didn't have any friends. And so we would band together, and it was easy for me to be voted president because they said, who wants to be president? And no one raised their hand. And I said, I'll do it. You're in.
Unanimous, right? Yeah.
And so unanimous, as long as it's not me, if she wants to do it, we want her. So, and so we had this career fair. And at this career fair, we invited people who, had technical backgrounds, math or science, those types of backgrounds, to talk about their profession. And one person was an entrepreneur. And even though as president, I was supposed to, work the room and kind of make sure everyone was together, as soon as he started talking to me, I spent all my time hanging on his every word. And he said things like, I kind of, I set the ceiling for my income. And, and he's saying all these things about what his life is like and how he's able to make a difference in the way he chooses versus being handcuffed by, the limitations that job might have or the salary cap that job might have. And I said, well, how do you start? And he said, step one is, you're going to have to make a lot of money and save it, because when you start a business, don't make money day one. And so that's what stuck with me. Okay, got it. And so I went into this income maximization zone. And so every job I had, I wanted to figure out what was the way to maximize my value, because I felt you get paid based on value. If I add more, and so I would negotiate, I'd say, hey, if I can help you make XYZ, how about give me a little, extra opportunity. And so that led to me ending up in this program with a telecommunications company that allowed me to really move around and get different promotions and really, in my opinion, make a difference. The problem was all of my life, I really banked on being smart was the answer. And as long as you are good and intelligent and can get work done on time and all of that, that's it. That's the key to success. And being able to talk well to the humans, that's optional. A whole lot of people know how to talk, that's a dime a dozen, you got to be smart. And yeah, I found out that was not the case. And so for me, it took getting promoted to be a supervisor, followed by getting fired, to waking me up to, what? There's a little bit more to this than meets the eye. It's not enough to do good work on time, high quality. You actually need to interact with the humans, the people. And so that's really what started me on the path that I'm on today. And I feel like the way that I can make an impact, empower, leave people better than I find them is to empower them to be effective so that whatever their gift, talent, skill, and ability is, it can flourish versus being hampered because you just don't know how to, talk to your boss or get buy-in or, have people believe in your vision. And so for me, when I work with organizations, I love the word leadership because for me, leadership is not about what a title or I supervise people, so I must be a leader. It's a being. And that being begins way before any titles or things like that show up. In fact, I believe every organization should empower every person to be a leader. And that stemmed from my experience.
Well, let me do this though. You are so typical. I got to tell you, I love talking to warriors, and you fast forwarded through quite a few things there in your story. And now I'm feeling you being in the present and what you're doing. And I'm totally down for that. I am really, ready to do that. And we'll do that in the next segment. But before we take a break, I want to get a little more insight here because I know, I've lost a job in the corporate structure. I've gone through years of being in the corporate world in large corporations. I retired 16 years ago. So we have some common frame of reference here. And I know the zombies that come through that whole thing. And I can tell you, we've got a lot of warriors that are listening to this and going, okay, she moved from the corporate world to being an independent business owner. I understand, I mean, it's brilliant that you recognize that you were, an IQ focused person as opposed to the EQ part, and that whole balance of IQ, EQ that needs to ultimately occur because life is a team sport, right? It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur. In fact, it's harder if you're an entrepreneur if you're not careful, because you're not surrounded with people who are saying, okay, you're good at this, you do this, I'm going to bring somebody else onto the team and they're going to do that, and you can just focus on being an engineer, or you can focus on doing this. That's often the case. I've seen it over and over and over again in corporate America, where people are promoted and it's not just the Peter principle. It's not just promoted above their level of competence. It's really that we don't teach leadership. We don't groom people to be leaders, because leaders isn't being in charge. Leadership is taking care of those in your charge. Exactly. And so, as Simon Sinek says, I think that's a quote from Simon Sinek. I totally have lived that, believe that. So tell me, along that, some of those junction points? How did you get over the firing? How did, what were the zombies that popped into your brain at that point?
And, for me, it was always that repetitive story of what's wrong with me.
Mhm.
And, when I got fired, yeah, it was bad enough to get fired, but it was the embarrassment because literally security walked me out the door. And the same door that I had walked in for years, just going to work. And now I was traumatized.
You're being perp walked out the door, right?
Right. And then it was literally as though no one else had any work to do except to see who's getting fired. So eyeballs everywhere. Like you don't turn a corner without eyeballs as far as you can see, every hallway. And so yeah, so for me it was traumatizing. It took me months of kind of woe is me wallowing, where I thought I tried to do everything right, and look what happened to me, and feeling a sense of a sort of abandonment, because I felt as though some of the very people who had been there for me moving up, in my, like, getting all of these promotions and things, like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, when the tide turns, it's like crickets.
Yeah,
They're
people
not
are
calling
always
as
there.
often.
Yeah, they're always there for the celebration, but for the struggle, not so much.
Not so
And
much.
and they always say that's where you figure out who your real friends are, right? Is when you're going through
Yes.
stuff, right?
And it was particularly difficult for me because in my case, yes, I had parents that I could move in with, but here I am, I'm not coming home the person that did well. I'm coming home the person that, because my dad paid for half of my engineering degree,
Mhm.
and so he's still making student loan payments, let alone I've got student loan debt. And so here he is making payments so that the person he's paying for is at home. And so it was kind of, I felt like it came at me from all directions, and it made me really question who I was and what my purpose was. Like, do I have value? Maybe I'm the one person that they kind of missed over, and God said, everyone else has value, but yeah, I don't know so much. And so I started having doubts. And thankfully for me, I had enough of a foundation where the doubts didn't overtake me. But I know there are people who, when those types of things happen and you question your value, your purpose, what you're here to accomplish, and sometimes you kind of look out and it's like, oh, I don't know.
Mhm.
And but I just decided at the end of that period of months of wallowing and despair, that okay, it's time for me to do something. And for me, I find if I'm in action, even if that action is helping somebody else who actually didn't go through, like, isn't traumatized and is just doing their thing, if I'm in action, it's harder for me to be, in the woe is me, mindset.
Yeah.
But even to this day, that mindset, it didn't vanish. I just shift and make a different choice as opposed to it went away.
And that is brilliant. I got to tell you, LaShanya, that is such a powerful lesson because it's how we are made. And I say we, I mean you, me, everybody listening to this podcast. We're all made, that zombie brain that I kind of say we're all infected with is
Mhm.
really there to protect us. And
Yeah.
going through one of the reasons why I wanted to drill down on that just a bit, not to bring up the pain, but I wanted people to understand that those kind of events in our subconscious, they're not front of mind,
Right.
will, if we're not careful, we'll get through the mourning stage, or we'll get through the wallowing stage, as you called it, but it's still there. And if you're not careful and you get in your head, as I often talk to my daughter about or whatever, you will imagine that thing happening again, and it will hold you back. It'll keep
Yes.
you from not only, even if you know what you're supposed to be doing, it can keep you off the journey. It can stall you. It can make you stop. And you just illustrated that in that you, number one, had to overcome that. People, warriors that ultimately focus on that kind of event never move forward. And
Yeah.
so you recognized, I have to move forward. And that's such a brilliant thing. Well, let's do this. I want to get into what you're doing today. You're welcome to, refer to any other things in your story, because you really have a story that's really not uncommon. I mean, we all have those inflection points in our lives, in our careers, in our, could be in relationships, could be in our finances, could be in our health, any number of things that can really derail us, those zombies that we have to overcome. And you've just given us a good example of how you've overcome that. So I want to talk about where you are today. So let's take another quick break. We'll hear a little bit more for the audio audience of Ricky Jean Wright and our theme song, It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be right back with LaShanya Aikerson and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, brilliant. We are back. And LaShanya, this has been a fun ride so far. So tell me, why are you doing what you're doing today? And what kind of value do you see yourself providing? And if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you like to have?
Excellent. Thank you. And, at Aikerson Consulting Group, we really help organizations build leaders who effectively manage mandated change, meet performance metrics, and develop organizational resilience. My goal is to support organizations, one organization at a time, to create an environment that not only allows them to handle the changes that they're experiencing in the present. And, right now, everyone's going through some type of change. Also, to empower their organization with those leadership skills to sustain them for the future. And to me, as I leave each place better than I find it, then I know that I'm making an impact. And I do that with a team of people who believe in that as well. They're there to make the best difference that they can. And, my motto, I have a very authentic way of delivering. In other words, I'm not one of those people that believes in, okay, I got this off the shelf topic A, and I'm going to give it to you the same way that I taught it to the last 10 clients. And, I have a very engaging style, and I give people an opportunity to not only relate to my own authenticity and that of the trainers, some of the struggles that we've gone through, because none of us were born, with the level of success that we have currently, and then allow them to share, what's your biggest struggle? If we know this is where you want to be, and this is where you currently are, and we know there's that gap, what is your current struggle? And to be vulnerable and honest in a safe way, knowing that no one's going to come back and beat them up or have some negative consequence, and that instead only good will come from that authenticity. And when people are able to be real and share what it truly is, the truth of what's getting in their way. And now we address the truth versus a best guess at best. Now that we're addressing the truth, we can create sustained results. And as a result, I feel like I'm able to go into organizations and work with leaders where, before I showed up, sure, they've had other training, but they never transformed in terms of from the inside out. And as a result, now they have the confidence to be authentic and to do those things in ways that they never did before. And so I really believe my superpower is my ability to be real with people in a way that allows their reality to surface, such that what they truly want, the goals that they've set, the value that they have to offer can be realized and much quicker than many think.
That is extremely powerful because, again, having come out of the corporate world and on the journey the last 16 years since I've retired, and I am retired today. I live a version of my ideal day every day. You're part of it today. The audience is part of it today. It's fun life to live. But I will tell you that that's the thing. If any consultant or coach or whatever is listening to this, the thing, if you don't bring your story into the room when you're working with a corporation, you're missing the largest part of your value. Because interestingly enough, in most corporate structures, in most companies, it's, even though they know they need to move, they need to change, they need to get the organization moving in a path, it's uncertain. It's what I call a VUCA environment. It's volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous as to what do I do. And it's easy to feel unsafe,
Yeah.
feel like, okay, if I really say I don't get this, or I don't understand this, or I'm not feeling it, it's a place where you're unsafe. And bringing in somebody like, Aikerson Consulting, or just anybody, when I was working at Accenture, when we bring in an outside organization that has the mission of saying, okay, yes, failure is part of the equation, not knowing is expected, and you're safe, let's move forward, is the foundation that's required to lead change, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
agree.
So that's very powerful. Well, let me ask you this. So I know you're working with companies and stuff, and since you're the CEO of Aikerson Consulting, and you're leading your own path, and I know if anything were possible, and as I say, I believe everything is possible, what kind of impact would you hope to have as you move forward on your journey?
So for me, it's really about having an impact with, as many organizations as possible between now and my retirement time, where I can say I made a difference.
Mhm.
And for me, the organizations I've worked with, I can look at them and say, this is them pre-working with me, this is them post-working with me, and look at the improvement. And so for me, it's really about working with as many organizations as possible. And I really target those people who, are ready, willing, and able to step into what's next. Not that they necessarily understand what's next, what it will take from them, because usually what we think it's going to take from us and what it actually takes from us is not the same. So not saying that they know exactly what it's going to take, but they're willing to go there. They're open to that possibility. And so finding those people who, are willing to, what, I'm ready to take myself on. I'm ready to, take my organization on and move forward and create results that, that are truly possible.
Well, ding, ding, ding! You just hit one of my words: possibilities. So we just found another point of alignment here, and I believe, as I say, I believe everything is possible, and just getting people to get out of their box
Mhm.
and realize possibilities lie outside the box, outside what they already are comfortable with. Like
Mhm.
we say, we often say, right?
Mhm.
If is no growth occurs within your comfort zone. It's
Yes.
really when you push beyond that. Life, health, the future lies outside your comfort zone. And I'm not ready to settle in. You're not ready to settle in. And helping people through that process. And you're right. I mean, if you can transform, that's one of the things. I don't miss the politics and the bureaucracy that lies within the corporate larger companies. To be honest with you, I've done that. It's kind of feels like a lot like work. So I don't do that much. That's why I like working with entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
people who are inspired, and they're working with them from within to
Mhm.
embrace the possibilities. So I love that. But when you are working with companies like you're working with, you make an impact on that organization, you're impacting thousands of lives potentially, or however many people are in
Yes.
that company, and
Yeah.
their families
Yeah.
and the clients and the partners and everything else. So I get it. I mean, you can
Yes.
impact millions of people. All right, well, let's do this. We could do this for quite a while. I'm loving our conversation, but I want to do this. I want to take another quick break, hear a little bit more of Ricky Jean Wright, and then we're going to be back and we'll hear a little bit about what do you want us to take away and how do we stay in touch. So let's take another quick break. We'll be right back after hearing a little bit more of our theme song, and we'll hear the final segment of Warrior versus Zombie with LaShanya Aikerson. All right, LaShanya, as always, these rides are they're a lot shorter. Sometimes, they're can be a journey of struggle, but we've had a lot of fun here. So tell me, as I said before, we took the quick break. If we take away anything from this discussion, one or two things, you can pick. I used to say, give me one thing. And then what happened was every warrior's an overachiever. So they usually give me anywhere, I've had, five with three, or three with five sub points, and whatever you want to do there. But if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you want us to take away?
I would say be willing to embrace change. And it's so easy to, put on the mask of protection. To me, it's almost like wearing a Halloween costume. And you go around, and instead of being your authentic self and all the vulnerabilities that brings, you put on your protection and you go into work, and you hang around with your loved ones, and you kind of have that mask on. Be willing to embrace change from a standpoint of truly being real, creating those things that have always been possible. You've been the only person in your own way. And when we're vulnerable, when we're open, when we have that level of authentic integrity, that's when the magic happens, and we can change. And status quo, I'm a firm believer, I don't live in status quo. What's next? What's possible? Where am I going? And so just embrace willingness to change.
Wow. So you definitely have defined a warrior in your mindset and what you're talking about here. And I love that. Be willing to embrace change. But you said something else there that I think is really important. You have embracing change oftentimes, and I'm known as a vision warrior, right? So I'm always wanting people to focus on, why they're here, the value they provide, where they're going. But one of the things is you have to be, that you said in that, what you just said, you have to be authentic and real with where you are. And so many times we get to where we are and we've worn this mask, as you called it, of inauthenticity. There's a lot here that I really don't know. I'm actually standing here myself today, very uncomfortable with things that I need to do to move forward, as we all are.
Yes.
And the thing is, if you don't address that, if you don't embrace that, if you don't, that's a very powerful warrior nugget right there, is just being real with where you are, because that's the basis and the starting point for the change that's going to get you to where you want to go. So brilliant. I love it. All right. Well, so how do we stay in touch with you? I know you're on the Be Connected platform. I know you're not real, heavy into that. The cool thing is it's a exploding, transformational, it's not social media, it's actually social business, and it's really bringing the relationship there, and we can talk about that. So people will in that community will find you there, but how else do we find you?
So the best bet is to go to AikersonConsulting.com, and that's AIKERSON consulting.com all together.
Okay.
And from there, you can access, links to all my presences on social media, email info@aikersonconsulting.com, phone numbers, everything is right there. And so I recommend you go there as a starting point and reach out. I've got a contact us page where you can, add some commentary and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about XYZ, and get a response. So that's your best option.
All right, AikersonConsulting.com. And that's makes it easy. I like that. When I'm listening to a podcast, I can remember enough to go back and find it again. By the way, we'll put that link in the show notes for this podcast as well. So for those that want to find it, and like I said, if you're watching this replay on the Be Connected platform, you'll be able to find LaShanya. We're going to get her flourishing on this platform as well. And anyway, so it's been brilliant. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing with our audience. If you didn't hear, by the way, if you want to get more insight into the methodology and kind of what she does, I'd encourage you, the show we did last Friday, or the mastermind we did last Friday, we got about an hour of LaShanya and her methodology and stuff there. So if you want to get more insight there, I'd also encourage you to go either on the YouTube replay or within the Be Connected platform to view that. I think it's not on the audio, so you'll have to go to either YouTube or the Be Connected platform, but it's definitely worth the visit. It was a good session we had last week, and I really appreciate you, LaShanya, sharing with us. All right, well, again, as I said, we can talk for a long time, but thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. This has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, we've had fun, and I predict we will continue to have fun. I can think of some possibilities that we could explore as we go forward, and I'm looking forward to whatever God may bring to pass there. So I'm excited about that. Let's land the plane, as I say, and hear the final outro of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright for the audio audience. And we'll be back next Thursday, 11 Central, for another episode of Warrior versus Zombie.